Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Jasmine Pace. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Jasmine Pace was born on May 29, 2000, and lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Her mother's name was Katrina, and her father's name was Travis. Eventually, Jasmine lived with her mother and her stepfather and worked in the office of her family's construction business. Also, Jasmine was a student at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. In early 2022, Jasmine met a man named Jason Chen on a dating app. He had been born on November 9, 2000, so he was about 6 months younger than Jasmine. He went to the same college as Jasmine, where he studied computer science. The couple became romantically involved and dated for a few months. After this, they lost touch, but then reconnected a few months later. They traveled to Chicago together in the summer of 2022. Jasmine had not told her family members about her relationship with Jason. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On Saturday, November 26, 2022, at 7:10 p.m., Jasmine's mother, Katrina, called 911 and reported that her daughter was missing. Here is what the police found during the course of their investigation. Using location data from Jasmine's 2021 Chevrolet Equinox, the police learned that her vehicle left her residence on Tuesday, November 22, at 11:27 p.m. It arrived at Jason's apartment building at 110 Tremont Street at 11:42 p.m., and the ignition turned off at 11:43 p.m. Jason lived in apartment 210. A few hours later, at 2:18 a.m., now on Wednesday, November 23, Jasmine shared her location with her mother using a pin drop. Jasmine was still at Jason's apartment building at this time. Later, Katrina received a message from Jasmine's phone indicating that Jasmine would be staying at a friend's house for the rest of the week. Katrina thought this was out of the ordinary because Thanksgiving was the next day. On Saturday, November 26, an image was posted to Jasmine's Facebook page with the caption, quote, "Enjoy Thanksgiving with my baby," unquote. Jasmine was wearing a revealing outfit, which was unusual for her. Also, there was no tattoo on her shoulder, which meant that the image was a few years old. Family members and friends tried to contact Jasmine. A few messages were received back from Jasmine's phone, indicating that Jasmine wanted to be left alone. On Saturday, November 26, Katrina tracked her daughter's vehicle to Signal View Condominiums at 900 Mountain Creek Road in Chattanooga. She noticed that the seat of Jasmine's vehicle had been adjusted for someone who was taller than Jasmine. This is when Katrina called 911. After speaking to the police, Katrina went to Jason's apartment on Tremont Street, but nobody was home. Katrina and at least one other family member used a credit card to gain entry into Jason's apartment. Inside, they found Jasmine's driver's license and credit cards. The police were once again contacted. They cautioned family members against entering Jason's apartment again and indicated that a detective would follow up. Late on Sunday, November 27, the police executed a search warrant on Jason's apartment. They noticed blood in multiple places, including on the hardwood floor in the living room, on the carpet in the master bedroom, and in the bathroom. Later, lab tests indicated the blood belonged to Jasmine. Investigators also noticed cleaning supplies on the couch in the living room. It seemed pretty obvious that Jason had killed Jasmine, so the police started looking for him. On Tuesday, November 29, 2022, the police found Jason at his parents' residence on Ashburn Court in Nolensville, Tennessee. This is 2 hours northwest of Chattanooga. They noticed that Jason had cuts on his right hand and on his feet. Data from his cell phone led the police to Suck Creek Road, near the Tennessee River, not far from Chattanooga, where on December 1, 2022, they found a suitcase. Jasmine's 98-pound body was folded inside. She had been stabbed 60 times in her back, neck, head, and arm. Most of the stab wounds were on her right side. Jason was arrested and charged with murder. The police were able to construct a timeline from several sources, including video surveillance, cell phone data, and witnesses. On November 23, 2022, at 2:11 a.m., which is just over 2 hours after Jasmine arrived at Jason's apartment, a neighbor named Courtney heard a series of disturbing sounds. She was awakened by a female scream, then heard footsteps as if somebody was being chased from Jason's bedroom to the front door of his apartment. At this point, a female voice could be heard talking in a manner that was sad but assertive. The front door of Jason's apartment slammed. Then Courtney heard the sound of somebody walking. The police believe that Courtney heard Jason Chen killing Jasmine Pace. At 2:18 a.m., Jasmine's phone was used to send that pin drop to her mother, Katrina. Presumably, Jasmine is the one who sent this because she knew her life was in danger from Jason. At 2:31 a.m., the neighbor, Courtney, heard Jason turn on a TV in his bedroom. At 9:52 a.m., Jason went on the dating app Tinder and communicated with women. At 10:29 a.m., he exited his apartment building and drove his 2018 Toyota Camry to a Walmart store, arriving at 10:42 a.m. Jasmine's phone was with him, but he was alone in his vehicle. At Walmart, he purchased various items, including a 6-pack of paper towels. Jason returned to his apartment at 12:38 p.m. and left again at 1:36 p.m. This time he went to a Walgreens store where he purchased rubbing alcohol. After returning to his apartment, Jason left again at 2:56 p.m. At 4:03 p.m., he sent a text message to Jasmine, which read, quote, "Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight?" unquote. Jason was trying to make it appear as though Jasmine was still alive. At 5:59 p.m., after returning to his apartment, Jason was captured on video pulling a suitcase on the sidewalk. This suitcase contained Jasmine's body. He drove to Suck Creek Road and left the suitcase by the Tennessee River. After stopping at Walgreens again, Jason returned to his apartment. He did not emerge again until 8:26 p.m. At this point, he was wearing a surgical mask. Data from Jasmine's Chevrolet Equinox indicated that her vehicle started at 8:27 p.m., so just a minute later. It was then driven from 110 Tremont Street to 900 Mountain Creek Road, where it was ultimately found. Jason took a rideshare back to his apartment, arriving at 9:02 p.m. At 12:06 a.m., now on November 24, 2022, he communicated with his friends about playing video games. On January 13, 2025, Jason Chen went on trial for murder. His defense immediately conceded that Jason caused Jasmine's death by stabbing her 60 times, but claimed he was acting in self-defense. They argued that Jasmine attacked Jason with a wine bottle. This meant that Jason Chen was guilty of voluntary manslaughter, not of first-degree murder. On January 20, 2025, Jason Chen was found guilty of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. The jury started their deliberations at 4:12 p.m. and rendered their verdict just 44 minutes later at 4:56 p.m. It's not clear what they were doing for the last 43 minutes. On the next day, Jason Chen received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Jason Chen maintains his guilt, not guilt for first-degree murder. Rather, his defense attorneys argued that Jason is guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Here is the story put forth by the defense. On the night of the killing, Jasmine went to retrieve wine from the kitchen and heard alerts coming from Jason's cell phone. She realized that these alerts were from the dating app Tinder. Jason had received messages from other women. As a result of making this discovery, Jasmine flew into a rage and attacked Jason with a wine bottle. During this attack, Jason blacked out. When he woke up, he realized that he had stabbed Jasmine to death. He then disposed of her body and made other efforts to escape responsibility. The state, of course, disagrees regarding Jason's guilt. They believe that he is guilty of first-degree murder. They argued that he premeditated the killing of Jasmine Pace. He may not have planned it for long, but he contemplated his actions for a sufficient amount of time to constitute premeditation. This brings me to the question, was Jason Chen guilty of first-degree murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. There is no question that Jason stabbed Jasmine 60 times, causing her death. He then engaged in extensive efforts to escape responsibility. For example, cleaning his apartment, disposing of Jasmine's body, using her phone to impersonate her so people would believe she was still alive, posting on social media to create an alibi for himself, and wearing a face mask. Something tells me that Jason probably was not too worried about getting COVID-19. As I mentioned, Jason's defense was based on the idea that Jasmine became angry after seeing Tinder messages and attacked him first. The problem with this theory is that Jason was not active on Tinder until a few hours after the killing. There would have been no messages for Jasmine to see. This supports the theory that Jason was lying. Jason's defense argued that he and Jasmine were drinking wine and smoking marijuana right before the killing, but there is no evidence to support that claim. Even if Jasmine did attack Jason first, she was 5'2" and weighed 98 pounds. It's hard to imagine that she represented a serious threat to his safety. Why didn't Jason simply leave the apartment and call for help? Even if he was somehow justified in using lethal force, stabbing Jasmine 60 times was excessive and uncalled for. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there is no way to know exactly what happened in Jason's apartment on the night when Jasmine was killed. In theory, it is possible that Jasmine was the aggressor. A wine bottle can certainly be used to seriously injure or kill a person. There is no evidence to support the theory that Jason planned the killing of Jasmine far in advance. That's pretty much it for the exculpatory factors. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Jason Chen was guilty of first-degree murder? Yes, in my opinion, he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The big problem for Jason is how long the attack lasted. It started at 2:11 a.m., and Jasmine sent the pin drop at 2:18 a.m. This murder was not completed in 10 seconds, or even in a minute. Rather, it lasted for several minutes. If premeditation did not exist when Jason stabbed Jasmine for the first time, and it may not have, it certainly existed by the time he stabbed her for the 60th time. The extensive effort to destroy the evidence also hurt Jason, even though that occurred after the fact. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Jason Chen was self-centered, impulsive, irresponsible, antagonistic, cold, callous, violent, overconfident, had a sense of entitlement, and was exceedingly creepy. A mental health clinician who evaluated Jason determined that he was not psychopathic or sociopathic. Jason did not have any mental health diagnosis at all, but he had experienced some symptoms of anxiety and depression in his life. One could argue that there were no clear red flags indicating that Jason would become a killer. Text messages between Jason and Jasmine indicated that Jason was losing interest in Jasmine, but she was becoming increasingly attracted to him. Jasmine valued the relationship more than Jason did. On the night of the murder, perhaps they were arguing about the future of the relationship. Maybe Jasmine sensed that Jason was distant. There is no way to know what caused the disagreement. Regardless of what it was, Jason massively overreacted. In the heat of the moment, he stabbed Jasmine 60 times. His rage was unbelievably intense. During the attack, which lasted for several minutes, he decided to continue stabbing Jasmine. This is where the premeditation came in. Right away, Jason realized he was in trouble. He launched a campaign to escape responsibility, but he did not know what he was doing. He made all types of maneuvers with his cell phone and Jasmine's cell phone, like turning them on and off at different times, sending messages as Jasmine, and taking the SIM card from her phone and putting it in his phone. Jason dumped Jasmine's body in a location by the Tennessee River, which she allegedly had mentioned to him before as a place of beauty. So this is an area that Jasmine pointed out to Jason, saying that he should go there to look at the natural world. It was amazing. It was a scenic spot. If Jason did know about this location, maybe dumping the body there was symbolic, or it could have just been a coincidence. Jason cleaned his apartment in a desperate attempt to get rid of all the blood, but he was not successful. Eventually, he fled to his parents' residence because he knew he was doomed. Jason had just about no chance of winning at trial, but he was facing a first-degree murder charge, so he probably figured he had nothing to lose. Now moving to my final thoughts. One of Jasmine's family members indicated that Jasmine prevented other women from becoming victims. The implication here is that her death saved others, because Jason would have killed again if he was not arrested for Jasmine's murder. Given the evidence in this case, I think this is a reasonable conclusion. Anyone who could carry out this type of murder is extremely dangerous and can never be trusted. Jason was like a ticking time bomb, just waiting for an unsuspecting victim to pick him up. Those are my thoughts in the case of Jasmine Pace. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.